All right, welcome back to the stream. Saturday afternoon. My name is Angela, software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And last weekend on Sunday, we started working on a CSS Grid Masonry layout. And this was the result. We used ChatGPT to help us do this layout. It threw a ton of stuff at us to try. None of it really worked. So what did finally end up working is not CSS Grid, but rather column count and column gap. So let's switch this. And I was so excited that something was finally working. I really didn't even make the distinction last weekend that, hang on one second here. I think my volume's a little high. Yeah, we'll try that. Okay, so I think last weekend I was so happy to get this to work after like a long time of every suggestion that ChatGPT threw at me. After every CSS Grid option that ChatGPT gave me didn't work, I was so happy that column count and column gap did work. I didn't even make the distinction that we weren't using CSS Grid. Oh, and let me make sure that we have some margin in here. 1 rem. Yeah. Let's see, I think we need, our column gap is 1.5, so I'll change this to 1.5 as well. There we go. And here's why the distinction is important. And I tried to articulate this during the stream. I don't think I did a good job. So this is going to illustrate my point a lot better, which is that literally this goes in columns. What I really wanted, what I really hoped to achieve was that it would still be arranged in rows. So this could be, there are lots of situations where this would be appropriate for your DOM to be arranged like this. But if you have content that's timely, like maybe you're doing a blog layout and you need the most recent content to be arranged horizontally and not vertically, this might not be good, because something more timely, like let's say this right here, which should theoretically be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This should be in the top row on the right. This is now on the bottom row on the left. So this is content that's buried. So on a blog that is last in, first out, basically descending order, you need these most recent posts to be at the top. So this just wouldn't be suitable in that situation. If you were displaying a photo grid and it wasn't based on any sort of timeliness or last updated or anything like that, I think this would be perfectly fine. This is a great option, column grid. It totally works. It's totally supported. So then I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm forced to do a little bit of research. Let me switch to Firefox here. So I found this article on the web. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on one second here. Okay, I didn't sneeze, but I feel like I'm going to. So, I found this article on the WebKit blog, which basically says that this sort of pure masonry layout in CSS3 or CSS Grid is in an experimental mode right now. It's really not part of the official spec. So they had some suggestions here on where we could demo this. You could use it in Safari Technology Preview, or in Firefox we could turn on the feature flag. So that's what I did. I actually don't use Firefox very often. So I was able to search for Masonry. If you go to about:config in Firefox, and forgive me if you already know this, this was a first for me, and I searched for Masonry, and I was able to toggle this value. It was by default false. I toggled it to true, and then I took out column count, and I went ahead and enabled the grid CSS, and that works. So I maybe should have showed you ahead of time, but you'll be able to see the markup here. So we are very clearly display grid with the grid template rows Masonry, and you can see here the gaps are a little bit off. So my gap is 1.25 rems, but I also have this extra margin enabled, so we can take this out, and that looks a lot better. So yeah, this is an experimental feature. It's just not part of the spec yet, which is validating. Oh, and let's confirm what it was that I was hoping to achieve from the beginning. I mean, you could see here now that we have our content that is by default at the top of the DOM being arranged on the top of the page. So this would be ideal for a blog or anything that's timely, or anything that has that last in, first out, descending order, where you need your content laid out like that specifically, which I would say, I mean, think of all the way. So a blog, even if you maybe had like a photo essay, you would probably want your most recent, unless all of your photos were from the same day, and it doesn't matter. What else? If this was like an events, I could see an events calendar being arranged like this, where you would want the most, the most timely events, whether it's ascending or descending, to be at the top. So this is not part of the spec yet, and this blog post on WebKit is from April of this year, and they're asking for feedback. So I am going to go and give them feedback. There's more ways here to demo this. I was also validated by how I had written my markup. So yes, I am patting myself on the back that the people at Apple and we write the same markup. That makes me feel good, because I don't see very many people using figure tags, but I don't know everybody. So yeah, but this matches what we tried. So this made me happy to see that I wasn't insane, that it wasn't working. I mean, I knew it wasn't working, but I was happy to see why it wasn't working. And I'm happy to see that it is working, even if it's in an experimental mode. And I am going to go to wherever it is here that they say that we can leave feedback. Do they say? Let's see. Oh, I like this. I like it without any gaps. I think this looks really cool. What if instead we put a wider class on specifically on images that have a wider aspect ratio to make those images span multiple columns? We can also change the styling a bit, making the corners square instead of round and reducing the grid gap to 0. This gives us a different way to pack photos of different aspect ratios together. I really like this. We also experimented with combining the classic Masonry waterfall layout of photos with view transitions. When a user clicks or taps on a photo, it grows to span multiple columns. The browser auto-magically animates the transition. This demo requires Safari technology. Let's watch this. Yeah, that's really cool. Can you imagine if stuff like that was natively available in CSS? So there's a lot to read here. I'll make sure I mean, I can go ahead and put this in the chat for anybody who is interested. A little light reading. Yeah, a classic Masonry waterfall layout with various lengths of text looks like this, which is already more engaging since the user can read more about each article. And you can see here the dates that they have in here as an example, right? So we've got April, March, clearly April 10th. We've got March, March, March. We can't see the date here, but we've got February. Yeah, I mean, I like this. But even if your content wasn't timely, I mean, there could be situations where layouts like this would work. Yeah, this looks really great too. So there's a lot here to go over. I highly recommend that if you're interested in these types of layouts and understanding how this works, reading this article, they've got, hopefully they have a place here where you can leave feedback because they're asking people to give feedback. This is where you come in, try some demos of your own, write about your thoughts in your own blog, comment at the CSS working group in this issue. Should Masonry Waterfall be part of CSS Grid? Do you want the capabilities to define a columnar grid with CSS Grid, to use subgrid spanning explicit placement and all the many options for track sizing, or do you only want the ability to define a classic Masonry layout with equal sized columns? Will you use this? What might you create with it? So if in my job at the organization I work for, I would see us using this for like a blog layout and an event layout. I would see those are the two things that come to mind. But if this was more easily available, I could, and I showed this to my boss and some of the UI UX people on my team, I know that they would come up with ways to use this. But events and blog layouts for sure. Do you have links to demos you've made? We want to see your ideas and use cases. Are there things you want to do that you can't do with this model? Often thinking about something theoretically and actually seeing it in use can be very different. To make sure the CSSWG gets the design of this feature correct, we need developers to gain some hands-on experience and articulate your thoughts about what it's like. The WebKit team has been working on Masonry for a year and a half. It was first enabled by default in Safari Technology Preview 163 in February 2023. There's a bit more polish needed and details to work out, naming being one, but we would like to ship this feature soon. To do so, these fundamental questions need to be resolved. So this is from April 19th of this year. It's already September. Let's click this link and see where they're at. Okay. I used the Masonry jQuery plugin. I did too back in the day for a few things, and I've missed it in a number of places since then. I agree that Masonry is a type of grid and should be implemented as such. I also use the jQuery plugin. Anyone who's been a part of the dev community long enough and who's been talking and listening to designers and developers in the community knows that we do want Masonry layout. We may not all be working on big websites, but we are the ones building the web. Yes. I cast an additional vote to include Masonry as part of the CSS Grid layout system, not a separate display value, for all the reasons Jen Simmons mentioned in the article, all of them. An alternative proposal for CSS Masonry. I mean, so far I see people. I see a lot of people definitely wanting it. Let's just cut to the chase down to the bottom. And so we still have comments here as late as 3 days ago. So yeah, I'm definitely going to leave a comment here, probably later this afternoon or this evening. Well, I was happy, I guess, to do a little research. I mean, last weekend just really didn't go how I planned, so I just am happy to see it wasn't just me. It was just poor planning, but it wasn't actually me. So, okay, so here is what I would like to do for this evening. To be thorough and knowing that there are two solutions, my plan then for today, because what I really wanted to do, what I originally planned to do today, was I was going to also build the Pinterest header. And I mean, we could still do that. But once I saw that there was a column solution and an experimental solution, I was thinking what I maybe would do instead is make a button or make two buttons that toggle between both styles and then provide an explanation of what you're seeing. I think that makes more sense rather than me trying to recreate the Pinterest header. Yeah. But I did kind of want to do that also. But if I go and put a comment, if I go and put a comment there, and anybody ever clicks that link, they're just going to see somebody who's trying to copy the Pinterest header. That maybe doesn't matter. So, all right, let's go ahead and make a toggle, a couple of buttons that toggle between the styles, and then let's just provide some context based on where you are. And I really want to link to this article, because if anybody ever happens upon this and they see that this is broken, I want them to see this article, and I want to have something there that says, go ahead and enable this feature in Safari or Firefox and see how this works as an experimental feature. So let's go ahead and do that. I think that's a better use of my time. So, where's our markup? So we'll just go ahead and put it above the grid. So I think what I'm going to do is just put a couple of buttons. And we'll say, so this is basically, well, where's our... So this is basically column count we'll call this column count. We'll just say column count. And we'll call this experimental. Is that what we want to say? CSS 3 grid experimental. And so we'll just give this Oh, and the other thing that I noticed on Firefox, so yeah, we're on grid. So here's grid. Firefox, we don't have to write any media queries. They're kind of taking care of that for us. So I like that. So I'm going to do dot active. Well, really, we would want all of these. Well, this should probably be something else. So we can have active, or we can have column, or we can have grid. Yeah. So this will be column. And then this would be the grid option. Oh, grid.grid. Is that a good way to do that? Probably not. We'll call it CSS3. And then I'm pretty sure we can just, where is, well, here, let's go back to the browser and test that. So it would be grid CSS3. There we go. Or it would be grid column. Yep, and we just have to make sure that we're updating our margin, the figure margins, based on which one we're on. So we will need classes on, we'll have to toggle the class on the button, and well, I think it would only have to be the section because we can grab that from the parent container or the grandparent container, the parent container. So it would be .css3 figure the margin would be 0, or we could do .column. And the margin would be 0, 0, 1.5. There. Or if this was CSS3. There. Yeah, that works. So we would want, so do we want that button to have an active class? I think the button should have a class that matches whatever the container has. I think that makes the most sense. Let's see here. I need an to toggle between two classes called CSS3 or column. The click event will be a button with a class CSS type. The CSS3 or column class should be on the button and a section with a class of grid. Let's see if I explain that well enough. I need a JavaScript event listener to toggle between two classes called CSS3 or column. The click event will be a button with a class CSS type. The CSS3 or column class should be on the button and a section with a class of grid. Okay. There will be two buttons with a class of CSS type. Okay, let's try this. So we're in Chrome. There's column count and there's grid. Okay, so I think we got this backwards actually. Okay, so I think we just need to switch. So the default, we need one to have a default. So let's tell it what our buttons are going to look like here. The default button will be the first button, column count. This button should have its class when the page loads. Okay, so we'll just add it. That makes sense. Oh, yeah, and I have to add it to grid also. There we go. So here's column. Oh, nope, that's defaulting to CSS3. Hang on. So on page load, we have column. The problem is each button is toggling. Okay, so we just have to, if okay, so I actually don't think I want this. I think I just want this. So if it contains CSS3, remove CSS3 and add column, else remove column and add CSS3. I think I have to, let's see here. Okay, so on page load it's column. Yeah, that's not what I want. Oh, I probably should have checked the rest of the code. Yeah. Okay, so by default, we are column. See, it's still each button is still toggling. That's not what I wanted. So the first button will always apply the column class. The second button will always apply the CSS3 class. There you go. That's what I wanted. Perfect. So now we just have to style these buttons. And let's see how it looks in Firefox. So in Firefox, by default column, and we can switch back and forth. Perfect. And then we can put a little section of content above this section and use whichever class is on the button to show that information based on what you're clicked on. That works. That works. I like it. So let's go ahead. So thank you, ChatGPT, for your help as usual writing JavaScript. So let's go ahead and we'll just put another section here, and we'll write our content after we have everything styled. So we'll give this a class of CSS description, and we'll just put some lorem ipsum in for now. Perfect. And we can maybe even, well, maybe we should give this some paragraph tags. And then we'll go ahead and give this an H1. And we'll say we'll call this column count CSS Masonry layout. And we might as well put we'll put an article around this. We'll say CSS and then let's do another one. CSS3 grid masonry layout. Experimental. Yes, thank you. Column count. CSS3 grid. And let's write a little CSS. And let's do, I don't know, do we want to display none this? We've got a button so we can toggle between the two. So I think it's okay to, I think that it's okay to hide the content, hide and show the content by toggling the button, because the buttons will get focus. The buttons will get focus. So if you're reading this with a screen reader, you'll have the option of toggling the content, just like somebody who is seeing and interacting with the user interface. So I think it's okay to show and hide column, or show and hide content along with the buttons, because those buttons are the correct way and they will get focus. So we want to so this is specific to the section. So this would be the section image styles. So let's go before that. And we'll say button and description styles. So if we know that we have we might want to say, be kind of specific with this, since we're reusing these classes. That seemed like a good decision at the time. We'll see if we have to change that. So we'll just say button, button CSS3, and then we'll say button column. Yeah, I'm questioning that decision, but let's just keep going and see what happens. So then we would we could just add these classes here. And then this would be article CSS3. This would be so if the button has a class of CSS3, then we want I know there's a way to do this without JavaScript. If the button has a class, then we want the text container column to show. If CSS type CSS3 button has the class, then we want the article CSS3 to show. If you know the answer, don't tell me. It'll come to me in a second, because I know I'm overthinking this. mean, the specificity doesn't really work because the class is, it doesn't really, I'm trying to avoid putting classes on that as well. I don't think I should have to. I think I should just be able to, I mean, if this class isn't on the button, it can't be display block, right? Yeah. Okay. So this would be button. Oh, and we don't even need to use button. We could just do CSS type. CSS type article dot CSS3 display none. Or we could do this. It was the wrong one though. Display none, or it could be CSS3 article dot CSS3 display block. And it would be the same here. So it would be dot CSS type, or I think we can put it all inside this. Article.column. Can't spell. Oh my gosh. LE. CSS type article.column display none, or once the CSS type gets the column class, which it doesn't get until the button is clicked, then it would be article.column display block. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is right. So this all happens within the CSS type class, which both buttons have. And then each article has its respective class of column or CSS3. They can just live there. They don't have to be toggled. But based on whatever class the button has is what triggers which article is displayed. I mean, yeah, that didn't work. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Oh, because they always have, well, because it's based on but it's based on the button. So as long as, oh, do I have it backwards? Yeah. Okay, I think I can take this out. So I think we can say article text container. I don't even think we have to have article in there. We can just say text container by default. So the text container by default is display none. But if the button has the class, think my specificity just doesn't work. Oh yeah, because these are siblings. These are not children. That's why. So it needs to be we need a plus sign here. So this needs to be CSS type plus. I don't know if we might have to add CSS description, the section container, because I think the plus sign is for, oh, here, we can just do this. CSS type plus CSS description. CSS description. Oh, I don't think that worked either. We're close. I think we're close. So it would be yeah, because this was meant to be on this. I have to think about this for a second. I think we just need to move this up a level. Well, this would just need to be CSS type column plus CSS description, and then the same here. CSS type column and then CSS description plus so the button plus the description, by default the text containers are display none, but if a button has one of these classes, because the buttons are toggled, then it triggers one of these. Okay, we're close. Column is, why is column not working? Did I spell it wrong? That works. That does not work. see here. But if we click this, kind of makes me want to get this article out of here. Oh, it's because section is not a direct sibling of CSS type column. That's why. Okay, so we need a, what's the more general, it's not a plus sign, it's like, it's the squiggle. So I think we need this instead. There we go. I knew it would work. I knew it would work. Right here, this is what I want to see. Yeah, I like this. I think this is, I think this is better when it comes to, the whole point of this is to sort of experiment and play and figure out what works. And as a project, as something I'm going to put on, let me see here. I think my levels are a little too high. How's that? Sorry if I was blowing out anybody's ears. Didn't mean to do that. So I think as a project, as something, the whole point of this channel or doing these live streams is to like experiment and play and learn new things and experiment with techniques. I think this is, I feel better about putting this out there, providing an explanation about why one thing works and another thing doesn't. So yeah, I like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and style these buttons. We'll style this and we'll just write a little content here to explain what we're doing. Yeah, okay, so this page needs some padding. So what do we have here? And we don't really have a header, do we? And we don't really have a footer. So let's just take those out. I don't think we need a header and a footer. Well, I guess maybe we can put something in the footer. I'm not going to worry about the footer. Okay. Well, let's do some main styles. I'm just going to give everything 25 pixels of padding. And then we'll do some text styles. I think this entire CSS description is too wide. Let's make it about, I think our inner wrap is what, 90%? So if we made our CSS description I'm going to say max width. I'm going to give it a rem value. What's the rule? I think we can do CSS character count for a width. The CH unit lets you limit the width of text elements by character count. More specifically, the width of the 0 character for a given font. For example, if you set a paragraph's max width to 60 CH, that line will never be longer than the equivalent length of 60 characters for that font in that font size. Let's do that. 60 CH. Oh, that's pretty narrow. Yeah, we can do that though. We'll give it some more styles here. So let's give our grid column a little margin and push that down. And then let's style those buttons. Where's our buttons? Let's just do some generic button styles. So I'm going to say appearance none and border border 2 pixels, solid, transparent for now, and then background color. Let's just grab a couple colors from UI, from a UI color palette. What is it? Flat colors. And I'm going to grab this screen. mint. And I know white is not going to be accessible, so we'll just say black. And I do want the border to be mint. And then we'll do border radius of 10 pixels to start, and padding of 15 pixels all the way around. Let's do 1 rem. Oops, stop. Yeah, I don't think that it's not going to be accessible. We can try it. Yeah. It doesn't even meet the AA guideline. Let's see here. I mean, that has to be really dark. It's almost black. That's so dark. Yeah. So we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it. And I want this to be a lot more padding. Yeah, it's not that pretty, is it? But I don't think I was really trying to make this the most beautiful thing in the world. I was just trying to experiment with whether or not I could make a masonry layout. I think this has to be wider. I think that's too narrow for the layout. That's a little better. And then I think that's responsive too. So, yeah. That's handy. Okay, so let's add some at least styles for when those are active. So here's our default styles for the button, and then we can put a transition on this too. We can at least make that look nice. And then all right, we're back. I knocked over my mic. I think my levels are still too high. Sorry about that if I'm blowing your eardrums out. Okay, so these are our default styles for the button with the transition. Yeah, so we just want to make sure that, so we would do, I think we can just do hover, active, focus, but we have to make sure that we don't change the outline. I still want there to be a blue outline for focus. So we can write focus styles, we just can't change the outline property of focus. And then we also want to make sure that we're doing a style for the actual classes. So column and CSS3. And it's just going to be for hover, active, focus, or the active class, it will be a background color of transparent and nothing else. So we'll keep the green border and we'll keep the black text. Well, let's make this white instead of transparent, just to be on the safe side. Yeah, that works. And let's make sure that that has some margin around it so it can, let's also make sure that we have, I mean, I don't really want, I don't think we need to worry about a word wrap for mobile. Let's just put some margin around this so on mobile it kind of pops into that view naturally. Let's see here. So we'll just say margin 0.5 rems. Well, I'm going to say 0.5 on the, no, we could put it all the way around. That should be okay. Yeah, that's all right. That's a lot of padding on mobile though. Let's, oh, 25. I gave it 25. Let's do 15. That's a lot. Yeah, I guess that's fine. I don't know. It doesn't need to be perfect. Sometimes, what's the saying? Perfect is the enemy of done. Perfect is the enemy of done. And this, the whole point of this is not to have a perfect, I know, who am I trying to convince, right? Me or you? No. This is just a playground. We're just experimenting. We don't have to make a perfect thing today. We're just experimenting with layouts. And I'm actually really, really glad that this happened. I mean, last weekend I was not glad that this happened. Last weekend I thought this was a shit show. This weekend I'm glad it happened because I had a chance to learn about this. I really had never used CSS Grid. I had no idea this feature was still experimental. And I'm happy to see two solutions, and I'm happy to understand why you would use one solution over the other. So let's now update some of our content so we can have some context. So for the column layout, let's get a little help from ChatGPT. So I need a description of CSS. Let's see here. I need a description of CSS column count. And column gap. Not super detailed. Something with a casual tone and it's not super detailed, something with a casual tone. And I'll put in the actual CSS I'm using. Okay, I might need something a little more detailed. So put this in here like this. And then let's do pre. Give this a little formatting. You're not going to format for me? Oh, is pre a block level element? Is that why it won't format? I thought code blocks were, or do I have that backward? Yes. Okay, so maybe we need to use code instead. There we go. Yep, okay. And I'm going to include this in the README also. Yeah, I'll include this in the README. Okay, now we just need to ask it to do something similar for CSS3. Need a similar description for the CSS3 experimental oh my gosh, I cannot spell. Experimental layout using this code. can you give this to me with p tags and code elements that I can copy and paste? Nice. Okay, and I think there was another paragraph here that I wanted to include. And then I want to make sure that I include a link to this. For this section. I like it. I think I should put something here for people who come on Chrome and see this. Like in parentheses, if you're like you need to be in Safari or Firefox and enable this experimental mode. Enable this feature. See this working in Safari or Firefox when you enable this feature. And I will link it to my GitHub. And then I will also write a more detailed README. I should ask ChatGPT to write us a README right now. Yeah. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Please create a readme.md with the info you just gave me above for both descriptions. Yep, that looks good. All right, I say we commit this and see how things look on GitHub, and then we can go ahead and deploy this to our Heroku instance. Let's see here. Where are we? Oh, we already have it open. Okay, let's just crack open a new terminal. Options for both layouts with styles and JS and a README. Oh, of course. Okay. Copy. Git commit. is Heroku. Here is our Masonry layout. And we'll go to deploy. It's a little bigger. That still doesn't work. I don't know why it's not working. It says automatically deploys from main, but it's broken. If I refresh the page. Yeah, I don't know why that doesn't work. It hasn't worked for a while. Excellent. I like it. I'm on a huge monitor, so I think it's good to limit. I mean, it's not accessible to have your content span, what did I set this to, 90%, 80% of the window? And this is a 27-inch monitor. It's not accessible to have people reading that entire distance. So I like this. So what's that? That's like a normal like laptop layout like that, roughly. I mean, maybe it could be a little wider. Maybe it could be slightly wider. I mean, what they say, no more than 100, and I think I have it at 75. Let's set it to 100 and see what happens. I think when I heard about this, it was 60 to 100, no more than 100 characters. Yeah, I think maybe that is a little better. What's that, about 3/4 of the width? I wouldn't want it to be any wider. Yeah, we can do that. I'm good with that. Where's our terminal? Description. Yeah, I think that's a little better. So here's Chrome. Let's take a look at this in Safari, where we have this enabled. So here's column, and then here's CSS Grid. It's interesting to me that they have this, they have how many columns. You don't really specify. Well, or do you? I don't know. Because I don't actually, well, should I read the documentation that I had generated? Where are we here? Where's Chrome? Okay, so let's read our own documentation. I'll make it a little bigger. So this part sets up the columns. It's saying fill the container with as many columns as possible. each at least 14 rems wide, but no bigger than one fraction of the available space. So as the screen size changes, the number of columns will adjust automatically to fit. Okay, so it's saying fill the container with as many columns as possible, each at least 14 rems wide, but no bigger than one fraction of the available space. So if I made this, I want them to be a little wider. So let's do, so here's Chrome where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 columns on Chrome where grid template rows masonry doesn't work. What is it on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we have 9 on Firefox where it does work. So it's looking at the width a little bit differently from browser to browser, but I think what really matters is grid template rows masonry. This is the experimental feature. We know that gap works, we know that display grid works, and we know that this calculation is happening. It's happening differently in each browser, but we know that masonry is the thing that's experimental. But I do want to change the column. So instead of a minimum of 14, let's change it to 16. I want them to be just a little bit bigger. Let's get back here. Yeah, I can tell that that's a little bit bigger. Oh, but that's the column. Let's go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 6. So now it's 6. Let's see what it is. Oh yeah, and it's calculated the same. Oh no, again, it's the column. Yeah, this is calculated as 6 columns also. Oh my God, Angela, you refresh the page. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it is 8 in both browsers. Let's try. I still want to see if I can get it to be just a smidge bigger. So let's try 18. I'm gonna refresh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I like this layout a little bit better. Okay, so this is Chrome. Yeah, this is 7 too. I like this width a lot better. So I'm going to leave it at this. Okay, so let's commit this. Adjusting column width for grid layout. Yeah. So let's go ahead and we can deploy that. Yeah, I like that a lot better. We should change this too. Oh, I'm not on, hang on. There's our markup. So I changed this to 18. We'll update it here. And then let's update it in our README. Yep, 18. Okay. Okay, let's figure out why Heroku. Heroku enable automatic deploy not working. Heroku not automatically deploying changes. That's from 2022. This is probably what I should do, is I should just write my own action from Git. Maybe we could do that one of these weekends. That might be a good thing to do. Okay, well, for now, I can just do it myself. I know that I have other apps, though, that deploy automatically. That is annoying. So here's our Chrome version, which we know doesn't work in Chrome yet. And then here is our Firefox version, which does work because we have the experimental feature turned on. Okay. Yeah, I like it. This works. I'm good with this. I don't know. Should we have this H1 at the top of the page? Probably. You know what? Perfect is the enemy of done. I'm not worrying about this. There are just some things that I don't need to worry about. Does our link work? Yes. Okay, well, I guess this is what I hoped. I mean, I thought this was going to be a lot different of a project, but I am happy to have learned about this. I'm happy to be aware of both methods. I'm going to go and leave feedback on that GitHub repository for WebKit, this right here. I'm going to leave feedback on this and watch this issue, because I want to see if they use this. For now, I actually do have something at work that I'm working on that I could use the column layout for, that would be totally appropriate to have the the layout be vertical and not worry about those horizontal rows. So I actually can implement that right away. Yeah, but I would love to see this be part of the actual spec, because I could see events, blogs, calendars. It would be really, really useful. So I hope you found this useful. You can try to ask ChatGPT. Oh, I don't think you were here last weekend when we were working on this. ChatGPT gave us nothing but wrong answers. Hang on, let me pull it up for you. Last weekend was an adventure. Let me see if I can find it here. CSS Masonry Layout Solutions. This was our conversation with ChatGPT last weekend to try and get the masonry, the grid masonry spec to work. It's not part of grid. The masonry is actually not part of grid yet. So, and here's what I'm learning about ChatGPT. I've been using ChatGPT to help with coding solutions for about a year. Usually I need help with JavaScript. This is the first time I've asked for help with CSS. I can just about write CSS in my sleep at this point. JavaScript just does not flow naturally from me quite yet. I love JavaScript, but it's just not natural for me yet to write it. So I get a lot of help with JavaScript from ChatGPT. And ChatGPT can only give me good data if it has been taught with good data, if that makes sense. So there are lots of tutorials out there of people who have tried to get this to work. And I think at one time different techniques did work. But ChatGPT gave us all of these different solutions on how to do this, and none of them worked. None of them worked. And finally, it gave me, we'll just skip all the way down to the bottom here. It finally just gave me column count and column gap. And that is okay. But here's why it's an imperfect solution. So yes, we have this masonry layout, but the content literally flows in columns. So if you were using a layout like this for a blog or events, let's say we have 5 columns here. Your 5th item is at the very bottom of the page when it should be on the top right of the page. So this is not a solution that actually puts this content into rows. It's a true column solution, which is why I wanted to be able to have this CSS3 grid masonry layout, because we want these things to truly flow in rows. So with the experimental feature in Firefox, we can achieve that, but it's not part of the spec yet. It's still experimental. So you really have to look at your content. You have to talk to your content creators, your product managers, whoever on your team is helping you gather requirements, talk to your stakeholders, and find out if the content that you're building this for can be horizontal, if it can be in columns, or if it really needs to be in rows. So I have something that I could implement this right away, and it would absolutely be okay for it to be in rows, maybe a nice photo essay, things like that. But if you had a calendar, if you had events, if you had a blog, this probably wouldn't work. I don't think column count would work. It wouldn't work for the content. So you have to decide. That might be more than you asked for, but we definitely put ChatGPT to its paces last weekend. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. I love doing these live streams. I'm here every Saturday and Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will be back tomorrow. We also I thought we finished working on our modal window last weekend on Saturday, but I did not finish making that responsive or accessible. So I have a QA checklist, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're gonna wrap that one up as well. But as far as I'm concerned, our Masonry grid, we came, we learned, we built a test page, and we're going to keep an eye on the spec and see what happens. So until tomorrow, have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you again soon.